Hi everyone, and welcome back to Computer Graphics. In this lesson, we're going to be completing the project that we've been working on for the past couple of classes. Um, Hopefully, at the end of this at the end of this lesson, we are going to have a completed game that you should be able to play. So, a quick recap from last class. Last lesson, we covered how to create animals using the S key. We randomized their location on the screen, and we started to talk about how we could spawn them continuously, as well as changing our camera perspective from perspective to orthographic. In this lesson, we're going to be working on collision detection, continuous spawning, and um, a game over screen after the player loses. So we've covered collision detection briefly before, but collision detection basically allows us to detect if two objects, so this could be like an animal and the food in the game, we can detect if these two objects are colliding or touching each other, and then if they are, perform certain actions based on the state of their collision. If this case, in this case, if the food and the animal are colliding, we are going to destroy both objects and let the character keep playing. Okay. So, yep, as I said, we're going to be finishing Unit 2 today. If you guys want, you can continue on and do the play fetch challenge found on Unity's website. And of course, you can, of course, do more further exploration on your own. Let's go to the demo. So you're going to want to open up your Unity project from last time. Should look like this. Um, the first thing that we want to do is, the first thing that we want to do is to organize some of the code that we wrote last time. So we want to go to scripts folder and then open up the spawn manager script that we wrote last time. And what we had last time was something that looks like this. We had an if statement with a bunch of code inside. However, this is kind of messy and hard to read. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new method or new function called spawn random animal that contains all of this code for us. So I'm just gonna make that function, and then I'm gonna copy all of this, the code that's inside the if statement, paste it in there. We can fix the indenting, and then just write spawn random animal. So what this does is I've written a new function, right? And through this function, I'm able to just write the name of the function, which is here, and just use the function as is, right? Okay. You can see I save it, and yeah, it works. Okay, so once we do that, the next thing that we want to do is automate this. So we're able to, sorry, we're able to have the animals spawn at a fixed interval without us having to press S every single time, right? And so the way we do this is by adding a couple of lines of code to the top of our script. First of all, we're going to remove the if then statement, right? Since we don't need that anymore. Um, Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to create two new variables. So this is going to be a float of start delay and spawn interval. And so, as you probably know by now, float means that it isn't an integer, it can have decimal points. And as you can imagine, start delay is how long it takes for the timer to start, and spawn interval is how long it takes in between each animal to spawn. Um, Once we've gotten those two variables, we are going to add this line of code inside the start method. And so this line of code is going to run once at the beginning of the program or beginning of the game, and it's going to call the function that we defined here. It's going to use start delay and spawn interval, right? Okay. Once you do that, we can hit save, and go back to the project. Um, we could test this. Yeah, I can test this right now. Um, yeah, you can see that every couple of seconds the animal spawns, right? Okay. So now what we need to do is actually let me fix this because this wasn't working the way it was supposed to. Okay. Yeah. That was just a bug that I had from last time. Let me check if it works again. Perfect. Yeah, now we see that we have different animals. Beautiful. Okay. So the next thing that we want to do once we have uh fixed the spawn manager script is we want to add collision detection, right? So this is like the main focus of today's lesson. Um, Basically what we want to do with collision detection is go to each of the prefabs that we had last time. So if you remember what a prefab is, it's basically a template for an animal that we can use every single time, and it applies the same like code to each animal, right? So I'm gonna open my chicken prefab. You guys might have different prefabs because you have different animals, but they should all be roughly similar. Um, and this is yeah, so what we want to do is we want to add a component and in this box search up box collider, right? And then you just want to click on the first one. Don't click box collider 2D. That's a little bit more complicated. We just want to do box collider 3D. Once you click on that, it'll give you this screen. You can click edit collider and then you're going to be able to move, sorry, you're going to be able to move the edges here so you can make them. I'm having trouble clicking on it. You can change the size of the box, right? So it'll probably start out something like this, but then you can drag those green dots in so that's a bit more accurate to the shape of your animal. You can zoom in using the scroll wheel as well. Yep. Okay. So that's good enough. Now you're gonna want to do the same thing for each of these. Just click add component, such a box collider, click on it, then edit the shape so it fits, right? You can go ahead and pause the video here to do so. Okay. Now, when you're done with that, the next thing that you're going to want to do is to um, go back to each of these and select the is trigger checkbox, right? So the default way it starts is without that is trigger pressed. We want it to be on because in the future we want this to trigger an action, and the action is going to be deleting the animal and the food. So just make sure you go through all three of your prefabs and check the is trigger, right? Okay, lastly, we want to go to the um, projectile prefab. Actually do the same thing. Go to box collider and click is trigger, add. This is already pretty accurate, so I'm not going to change this. But yeah, you want to have that. Then another thing that you want to do is add a rigid body component to the pizza or the projectile, whatever it is in your case. So you can just do that very similarly to how we did the box fighter, just search up rigid body and click on the first one. Again, not the 2D version because we're in 3D. And then once you do that, click on use gravity. So it's gonna start like this, but we actually don't want there to be any gravity in this game because it's a top-down game, right? So we just want to uncheck use gravity. Perfect. Now you can save, and then now we want to take action on collision. So let's say our pizza and our dog collide, right? We want something to happen after this. And so the way we do this is by going into our scripts and creating a new C# script called detect collision. So I can just spell that out, detect collisions, right? I already have one, so I'm not going to create it, but that's what it is. Once you've created that script, go ahead and open it. In this script, you want to add one more function at the end. You don't want to mess with the start or update functions, but you want to add one new function called onTriggerEnter. This is a unique function in that it's going to have an argument, this bit of code here. This argument is going to be a collider object called other, right? So this is going to be whatever other object is colliding, right? So inside this function, we want to have two lines of code. First to destroy this game object, and then to destroy the other game object, right? Um, Make sure you don't capitalize game object here, because if you do, your program might throw errors. So, okay. Once you do that, again, go ahead and save. Go back to your um, Unity page, right? And then we want to add this detect collision script to each of our prefabs. Um, uh, so the way you do that, you can just click on prefabs, go back to add component, and then search up detect collisions. It should appear as a sharp script, right? So just go ahead and click that. I already have my script, so I'm not going to do that, but go ahead and do that for all three of your animals. So it should look something like this. Then lastly, what we want to do is add a game over message. So adding a game over message is quite simple. You just want to go to your destroy out of bounds script. Remember, the destroy out of bounds script was what checked if these animals had gone off screen or if the pizza had gone off screen and then destroyed them. So go ahead and open that. Once you've got that open, just go to the second part of the else if. So that's if the z position is lower than the lower bound, and add this line of code called debug.log game over. Make sure your log is capitalized, and make sure you put that before you destroy the game object. But once you got that, you should be good to go. Go ahead and save, right, as always. Um, I'm getting a error, right. Remember to have a semicolon. That's something that I always forget. But to get all of that, you should be able to just try the game out, right? So as you can see, I am able to spawn pizzas, and if I shoot them, then they disappear, right? Of course, there's going to be a couple of variables that you might want to change. For example, I want to give my farmer a little bit more speed. Um, and so let's see if I remember how to do that. Right, to do that, I would go to my scripts. I'll go to player controller and increase my speed. So in this case, I'm probably going to change that to 15. Let me try 15. Right. Let me try that again. Still not fast enough. I'm going to change that to 20. Yeah, 20 feels about good. And of course, you can mess around with some of your other variables as well. I'm going to up my range. Um, you can probably delete these first three animals that you have, because if you don't, then they're probably going to mess up the rest of your game. So I'm just gonna select all three of those and delete them. But yeah, that should be your game. So to recap what we did this lesson, we um, we first did continuous spawning, so each animal spawns on a set interval. The next thing we did is we I'm sorry, give me 1 second. Right. The next thing that we did is we made it so that uh like we cleaned up our code so that all of that code is inside one function, so it's a lot cleaner, right? Then we added collision and trigger components to each prefab. So using these collision components, we were able to check that the animals had collided with the pizza. Then if it had, we destroyed the animals, right? At the end, we also created a debug message that outputs game over when the game is over if an animal runs out of space. If you guys want, you can go ahead and try the challenge. It's called Fetch on Unity. Of course, if you have any questions about this or the challenge, you can send us an email or reach out to us however you want. Hopefully you enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next lesson.